Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Inside the Factory, and today we will be looking at the Mayson Guitars factory tour. So this tour video that I found is just a bunch of photos, so there'll be quite a bit of pausing and chatting through in this video, but it should be nice, short and sweet, and you can take a deep dive into the factory, so let's get right to it. This is how the wood gets delivered to them. It's not their wood storage. They don't store it outside. That's the wood storage. You can see each plate of wood has nice spaces in between it. So let's adequate airflow get through every single plate on the stack. Let's pause it here. This jig here is a side bending press. So what happens is they've got two sheets of spring steel, and the sides are soaked in some water. They're put between two sheets of spring steel, and then they get heated in this hydraulic press, which slowly presses the shape. So applying moisture and heat will allow the flex in the wood, and then this hydraulic clamp basically clamps them together. He's also got this little wheel down the bottom which he can add a bit of further manual pressure to if necessary. This is quite a large side bending press. You don't see many this big, so it looks like it's probably a different type of machine which they've jerry-rigged into a side bending press, but it's a hell of a bit of kit. That is seriously an amazing bit of kit. So here's the sides getting clamped into the moulds so that they can dry out and relax into the shape. This machine here, see, it's like a big wagon wheel or a water wheel. So this is how the tops and the backs are glued together. So if you imagine a book opens out, and you so say you've got a bit of wood and you cut it directly in the middle and open it like a book. That's what we call a book match in this industry. So if you hear the term book match, that's what's happening. They cut a bit of wood right down the middle, open it up like a book, and then you've got mirroring grains on each side. That needs to then be glued in the centre. The problem is you can't just apply clamps to each edge, otherwise it pushes the middle up. So you need to basically trap that middle, either with some clamps or like another book structure. So what this machine has is two plates which come on either side, and then two little turn like twisting manual clamps which puts the side pressure on. This tool was actually designed and constructed by Taylor Guitars, so it's a Taylor invention, and the concept of this is, once you've filled up the entire wheel as one person manning it, once you're onto the first one that you've loaded, so when you do the last one, you're back to the first one, the glue should have cured enough for you to then take it out and then refill it. So it's a constant process. In theory, it doesn't always work like that. Some companies leave them in there longer, but in theory, it should just be one person all day, gluing together tops and back plates, and then putting them on the shelf to the side of them. So this is a CNC machine. For people who don't know, basically a CNC works similar to a 3D printer, as you've got a machine which you can load in a file. They use what's called CAD for the most part, CAD files, and there's like a drill that will go around and follow the program that you've entered in. So you get different types of drill bits. You can program the drill bits, you can program the depths, the speeds, you can get really technical with it, but basically you can get this for metal and for woodworking. They obviously use it for wood, and what they use it for is cutting out the shape of the back, the tops, and cutting out the rosettes and the sound hole. So the rosette is the bit of inlay that goes around the sound hole. Here you can see the rosettes getting cut out, and that's the finished plates. This is lovely. So this is a go bar deck. Not many larger manufacturing companies actually use go bars anymore. It's all vacuum bladders and vacuum clamps. So what this is they've got the back plates there. They cut the back bracing to a certain diameter, and then they install the back bracing onto the back with a bit of glue, and then they've got these big bars which they then extend, which puts pressure between the top plate and bottom plate of this go bar deck. So this is what we call go bars, and you can see that there's a little brass surround around the back plate there that will have little notches in. So the back braces fit perfectly into those notches, so the back braces don't kind of shimmy and shift around as they're putting pressure down. Shaping the back braces by hand with planes and chisels. Lovely to see that handwork going on. This shot, I've stopped it a bit late. Let's scroll back a touch. So this shot is what I want to talk about the most, really. This is the bracing pattern of Mayson guitars. It's beautiful to see, and it's quite controversial. So any luthiers in the chat, please throw down your opinions into here. So you still got the transverse brace, which is the horizontal brace above the sound hole. This takes most of the strength of the top, stops the top warping. But you've also got the two braces along the left and right side of the sound hole. Those actually feed underneath the transverse brace and go towards the end of the neck block. They feed into the neck block itself. So the rigidity will come from the neck block all the way down into the bracing of the top there. It's got a standard X brace, as most steel string acoustics have, but this bracing is quite sharply contoured out. It's got quite a lot of height but not a lot of width. Generally the strength in bracing comes from high bracing, not wide bracing. Wide bracing actually disturbs how much that top can vibrate, whereas high bracing allows the vibration to happen but adds rigidity and strength. Another common thing is you normally have a bridge plate which extends between the two X braces, and then off that bridge plate you have sideways fan bracing. However, on this guitar you got the sideways fan bracing coming off the X brace, and then the bridge plate sits in between that fan bracing. This is the main controversial point. It's an asymmetrical bridge plate, so it's thicker on the bass end and thinner on the top end. But also it doesn't extend all the way to the other X, the other brace in the X. So they've gone fan brace forward with this bracing structure, and the bridge plate will cover the whole bridge, but only just so. So it's taking as much material away from the top without causing detrimental effects in the terms of the construction of the thing. In my opinion, in playing and having experienced these guitars for many years, this is where the majority of the sound actually comes from with the Mayson guitars. They're very bright instruments, they're very, very loud instruments, good presence, good punch, but I feel the reduction of the mass of the bracing, how thin and tall it is, allows them to play around with getting the tops thinner and reducing the size of the bridge plate. The bridge plate is a big flat bit of wood which gets stuck just underneath the bridge, but the bridge is what generates most of the sound. That area is where the sound is really generated from. So the more mass that bridge plate has, the more that item will absorb those vibrational energies. So please, if you're a luthier or you've studied this, comment down below and let me know your opinions. I find it really interesting, and I'm sure we can get a great debate happening here. There's a million and one ways to brace a guitar. They're all different. They all have their different nuances. I really enjoy this way, but you know, you might see downsides. Constructionally, I mean, I've dealt with these guitars for many a year, and I haven't yet seen one with a massive belly and warping happening. So you know, 6 years in, and we're all still good. So I mean, it's always just a test of time and see what will happen, really. Yeah, but let me know. So these are the sides. This is actually also very interesting. Mahogany kerfing, which is that kind of dashed line that goes all around the sides. That just gives you some extra play for gluing on the back and the top. You've got a mahogany end block, but then the mahogany neck block where the neck will attach, you can see that that's actually hollowed out. There's a very good reason for this, and we'll get to it in a minute. Process of gluing the top on, all the sides. Some amazing braces there, clamps. CNCing on the necks. See how many drill bits are needed to CNC the neck. These are, keep on pausing too late. So these are actually hydraulic presses. They've got quite a few of them, and they're gluing on the heel blocks and the scarf joint. So scarf joint neck is basically, you get a straight bit of wood, you cut like a 50 degree or 60 degree angle in it, and then you flip it over, which gives you the headstock break angle, is what we call it. Making a one-piece neck, there's still companies out there that do it, but it takes up a lot more material than building an instrument with a scarf joint and with a block glued on for the heel, the bit that attaches to the guitar. So in my opinion, a scarf joint and a two-piece heel block, I don't see constructionally any disadvantage to it. You know, glue is technically stronger than wood if it's a good glue joint. And by not having too much sideways grain, you know, going down for the headstock break angle, in my opinion, wood does actually make a stronger joint. I prefer it when the scarf joint is actually in the headstock. So with the Masons, they are in the headstock around where the 6th and the 1st tuning pegs would be. But you see some around like 2nd or 3rd fret. There's not a disadvantage of it, just it looks better when it's in the headstock and not when it's in the neck. It's more obvious when it's in the neck, and also that neck is under tension from the truss rod and the strings. So when it's in the headstock, it's out of the way of the truss rod at a minimum. It's still under string tension, of course, but and also if it were to ever go wrong, in my opinion, also it's more fixable when it's in the headstock end. So yeah, let's crack on. Drilling out the machine head holes. This is another interesting shot. So you can see that the necks have 3 troughs carved out of them. The middle one is for a dual action truss rod. All the Masons have dual action truss rods, but the left and right ones, they're actually for carbon fibre reinforcement. A lot of companies are doing this nowadays, and it depends on the size and quality of carbon fibre to call it a reinforcement or a stiffening rod. If it's like a 4mm by 4mm rod, there's still a lot of flex in that. That is basically made for weight relief, not really for stiffening. So Mayson use 4mm by 6mm deep rods, and that's borderline of what I would call a stiffening rod, but it also works in the way of really good weight relief, because it's like 1/8 of the weight of the material that you actually take out of the neck and replace it with. So carbon fibre is quite a new thing. It's definitely you know, you don't see it in traditional made instruments, only in modern made instruments. and it's starting to become more of a process within the mass manufacturing. I'm all for it. And you can also see that he's putting the logos, he's cutting all the logos out by hand and inlaying them into the headstock plates by hand, which is wonderful to see. So that's another interesting shot. They actually fret their fretboards. Let's go back. They put the frets in on the fretboards before they actually glue them on the neck. So many people do differently with the fretting. It's certainly quicker doing it that way. Is it better? It's fully debatable. If it makes a good join, then why not? You know, but if you get the position slightly off, you know, if you get a position slightly off when you're gluing an unslotted fingerboard, then you can still slot it in the right place. So this makes less room for errors. Checking the flatness of the top. That was drilling the bolt holes for the necks, carving necks, adding finish. This is a great shot. So the necks on Mayson guitars are all bolt-on necks. So there's two Allen keys that go through the inside of the body into the neck and bolt it on. A lot of companies do like a butt joint where the heel is flat and it butts onto the guitar. But what Mayson do is actually put a mortise and tenon in, which is it's stronger. It doesn't want to shift side to side, or you know, it shifts less up and down. There's a lot less wiggle room for it moving around. Also, you can see where it says D1 just up from the bolt holes. That is an extension of the neck, so the mahogany carries on extending. And remember we said about the neck block in the actual guitar being carved away, having a cavity in it? Well, that bit of mahogany fits snugly into that cavity. So basically, in essence, what that's doing is giving further reinforcement to the fingerboard itself and not gluing that fingerboard directly onto the body, which can move around. Also, next to the D1, you see another black plate. That black plate is a bit of carbon fibre, and that's what gets attached to the surrounding of that neck block. So basically, that fingerboard that attaches to the body, that's not going anywhere. A lot of traditional guitars, that fingerboard just carries on, and you don't have any more neck material carrying on with it. It's just the fingerboard itself. But fingerboards aren't necessarily thick bits of wood, strong bits of wood, so they're glued directly onto the top plate of the acoustic guitar. And if that top ever starts to warp, especially as it's around the sound hole, the sound hole is where arguably a lot of the warping will happen with age, the sound hole and the bridge, because that's what's pulling on the top. But if the bridge starts pulling, then it starts dipping in the sound hole, so they both kind of go with each other. If that top were to ever warp on the Mayson, that fingerboard is not affected, because that fingerboard is glued to the neck block. So unless you have a serious problem with the neck block, which isn't going to happen easy at all, unless it gets a serious whack or something, that fingerboard is never going to go wrong, ever. It's not going to, flick up and, have a ramp. It's not going to dip down. Ramping is what you get on a lot of traditionally made dovetail neck join guitars. I see it all the time. When you get up to like 10th, 12th fret and the instrument starts choking out, it doesn't have any sustain, or the note is just not there. That's what's happening. That fingerboard is lifting. It's not lifting away from the top, but the top is pushing it up. So this is just an extra sense of security and an extra process that hardly anyone does. I mean, you're talking about a build quality that only really small luthiers do, if they do it. It's very, very uncommon in the guitar world, and it is really, really nice. So in terms of working on it, you can whip the neck off with 2 bolts, Super, super simple. And in terms of longevity of build, I mean, they've really hit the nail on the head with that. And I seriously feel like a lot of companies should start adopting this as an option. But yeah, let's crack on. I can chat forever. Testing fit on the necks. You can see he's bolting the neck on there to see the fit. Binding, it's all done by hand. Finishing, it's all done by hand. Buffing is all done by hand. So although they've got machines that, you know, do some CNC work, cut the bodies out and stuff, you can see how much is a hands-on process. It's beautiful to see. So this little carousel here, you can see it here as well, this is like a curing station. So I would assume, although you can't see here, that they'll end up going through like a UV chamber or a heat chamber. Maybe they don't, maybe they're just left there to air dry. But once they're sprayed, a lot of companies will hang them on these kind of conveyor belts, like you get the dry cleaners. They'll pass through a UV chamber and it will help the curing process of the lacquers. Lots of finished bodies ready for their necks. Buffing and polishing by hand. There's some nice buffing wheels. This is cool as well. So like I was saying about the vacuum clamps that vacuum on the braces, well, these are smaller vacuum clamps that vacuum on the bridges, and specifically the bridges. So it's funny how they're adopting go bars for the back and top bracing, yet they're doing vacuum for the bridge. In a smaller factory, this is definitely the way I would go about things. The bridge vacuum clamps, they're cheaper, they're easier to run. Like you see here, you can get loads of them in a small space, whereas the back and top vacuum clamps, they have bladders which you need to replace all the time. They're quite bulky, they take up a lot of workspace. Similar to a go bar deck though, you know, that takes up a lot of space, but it's a lot cheaper to run a go bar deck. So they're all getting finished. So this is where the hardware goes on. They haven't really shown it, but their machine heads are beveled into the back of the headstock as well, so they mount flush. The base plate mounts flush, and it's just so beautiful to see. And there we have it. And their logo goes on for ages. So that's a quick and dirty tour of the Mayson factory. I hope you get a bit more information from my descriptions rather than just watching the photos and try and make your own mind up from it. It's a brand that we've done for, like I said, for 6+ years, and they've really impressed us. The production is slow and is a bit annoying from a retailer side of things, but we've never actually had to send a single one back. So I don't mind that they're slow. If they keep up the quality that they're keeping up, then I'll be absolutely fine with that. So it's a good little insight into how you can have a factory that is outputting, you know, not masses, but a larger number of instruments, and yet still following a lot of traditional and handmade processes, like the finishing, the buffing, the polishing. All of that's done by hand, the fitting of the neck, whereas you'll see a lot of other companies, they just have pre-programmed CAD designs, which, you know, put them in a CNC, then you got a neck out of it, slap it all together, jobs are good. And so Mayson are following a kind of half and half technique. Their guitars are super high-tech instruments, things like, you know, beveled in machine heads, carbon fibre in the neck, the carbon fibre under the heel joint, and the extended heel joint mahogany which fits into that neck block. That is, you don't see that in any other brand. It's just remarkably good engineering. It seems like such a simple concept, but I guess just that extra 20 minutes on that plate of carbon fibre, you know, larger factories can't be bothered with it because it's a bit of penny saving. But you know, why do some penny saving when you can have an item that's going to last an awful long time, last longer than your lifetime? So anyhow, I can ramble on for ages. I hope this has given you some more insight. If you haven't experienced them, come down and play the Mayson guitars. Their endorsee list is full of amazing fingerstyle players, and once you pick it up and try them, you'll realise why. The clarity in tone, the balance in tone is just remarkable. But anyhow, this has been a nice little insider video on how they're put together. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got some value from this video. Like, subscribe, hit the bell notification, all of that fun stuff. Leave a comment if there's anything you want me to question on. I do read all of the comments. I will answer them eventually. And yeah, see you in the next one. Cheers.